Rollup 35, level 100 training. We are really glad and happy that we can present you the new features and fixes which we did in this Rollup 35, which can generate benefit for you, for your customers, and we are really keen, and we are hoping that that we get some feedback from you. Hopefully you like what you were seeing, and let's get it started. We have the level 100 today, and we will introduce you to Rollup 35. As always, we do this with an HR manager view, meaning not too technical. And tomorrow we have a second part of this training, which is level 200, same content, but different view, because we show you what is under the hood, meaning we will open up the business process flows. We will open up everything which is admin focused, so that you need to know where to touch if you want to customize it, or if you want to extend our solution which we created for you. We have, as always, a focus area. Each rollup of ours has a focus area, and in this rollup 35, we focused on the self-approval of leave request, something which was asked from us a long time ago, and we had a lot of challenges there to make sure that it's working for all of our customers, and we are glad to implement and introduce this to our solution now. That's the self-approval of leave request processes. And the second focus will be shown by Vera. Vera, as always, my dear colleague here with me, presenting the applicant management enhancement. So, agenda of today. We first will take a look in the self-approval leave request, which I will show you. We have a further enhancement on the leave management, especially as we are going with big steps to the end of the year. We will have to carry forward a lot of leave entitlements again, and we want to continue on our journey to make it as visible and transparent, the whole carried forward process. Therefore, we introduced last rollup and this rollup a couple of new fields and relationships which allow you and your customers to understand this process is more visible on the UCI. We introduced the applicant rating and the application entity. So in the applicant management, we will learn how to select applicants in a really nice and visual way there, which allowed bigger customers who have hundreds of applicants to find their key and the best applicants first. We had some changes in the HR management licenses, meaning the assignment of our licenses and how we can prevent or how we can automate stuff in there. And we have additional UI changes, and in the end, my favorite part, I'm taking a look and introduce you to which customer tickets or product tickets better have been resolved with this very rollup. Before we go in there, we, as usual, ask you for your feedback, so you are able in your Partner Hub to download and install this very solution already on your test systems, even on customer test systems. Please do not apply this to a production environment just yet, as this has a release candidate status, but it's right now just a candidate, and we are looking for your feedback and some more testing to bring it to the customer. But if you have any feedback, please send it directly to rollupmaster@hubdrive.com. The self-approval process. That's a request which we quite often get from customer. we have with every customer that some employees, based on their position, based on their knowledge, based on their experience, or how long they work for the company, should be able to self-approve their leave request, meaning that they are entering a leave request, and while doing so, that this is auto-approved, so they don't have to ask someone else. As of now, so meaning Rollup 34 or earlier, all leave requests needs to be approved by someone else. Means you can't approve your own leave request. And even if you're the CEO, you are not able to approve your leave request. This is now changed. And we did it in a fashion that we say, hey, we don't want to create additional rule sets, meaning creating a big configuration file saying, okay, that group of people in that department or employees with a certain position or that are allowed to approve their own leave request. We defined it each employee. So every employee you can define now if you want them that they self-approve their leave request. Show you that in the system. To be able to do that and deal with our legacy customer meanwhile, and we know that a lot of our customers have a customized business process flow for absences. We didn't want to interfere with that because you did and we did the customization, so the custom was put a lot of thought in there, and we don't want to override any of those customizations, etc. This is why we introduced a brand new business process flow. The business process flow, the new business process flow, is one part which I will show you tomorrow in the level 200, how it will look like, which different steps it has, what is the trigger, and which filters they have for the visibility in there. And we have an additional field called substitute required in case of absences. What does that mean? Well, we now are also able to define if an employee, if he is going on vacation or tries to go on vacation PTO, that they need to have a substitute or not. Remember, till now we had two business process flow, one without substitute, one with substitute, and customers needed to decide which one of them they are using. Now we made that configurable. How did we do this? Let's take a look in the system. I'm right now logged on as an HR manager, and I'm looking at the additional personal file of Paul Morrison. Yeah. I'm going on the leave and management, and I see, okay, I have hundreds of leave summaries, now 14, and oops, and some of you might recognize that there is now a new settings in here. Those settings are set for absence, self-approval, yes, no, and substitute required, yes, no. If I'm clicking this to yes, you will see that the absence self-approval is set to no. The reason is, well, if you need a substitute, of course, you can't approve it without having a substitute approve. And the other way around is, of course, also working, that if you set this to yes, so absence approval to yes, your leave request will automatically get approved, but you don't need to ask a substitute for it. So it's one or the other. And I will show you now, as I set this to yes, which effect does it have. Therefore, I'm taking a different browser tab over here, up here. And I'm right now logged in as Paul Morrison. I'm going to employees, and you will see or employee data, you will see I am Paul Morrison. There you go, that's me. And I will now enter a leave request. Remember, we just switched it and said yes to it, that we are now needing, that we are now able to enter a leave request. choosing vacation, and I will choose, let's say I want to go on vacation from 19th to 25th, and I hit save as a draft. I'm not sure. Let's see. Did I do something else? What did I do there? Let's choose a different date. Let's go next year. Maybe there's a leave request existing for testing. Oh. Remember this one? It was introduced in the last rollup that we are now able to prevent an overbooking of a certain leave type, absence type. If there are not sufficient leave entitlement, you are now able to add this to the absence type settings. And while doing this in the absence type settings, you can have said, yes, you want to allow that a leave entitlement can be overbooked, meaning that someone can request leaves even though there is not a valid entitlement behind it. Or if someone shouldn't be allowed to do so. So I tested this right before this. Let's go back and hit new again. Already on vacation, and I want to go on vacation on Tuesday. There you go. Probably the wrong dates. Keep in mind, still RC status. So right now it's loading the absence calendar. It's loading the absence calendar automatically. You might recognize that this had happened. And that we are now have one day on the 23rd of November. It's visible in here, and I can hit submit. Remember, I'm the employee. So I'm Paul Morrison myself. And you will see it goes to the approval stage, and furthermore, it is already inactive. So allowing this, setting this to self-approval allows me as an employee to really enter leave requests, and they get automatically approved as soon as I submit the leave request. And it is easy to configure because it is a Boolean, a yes and no field, an option set there, which you can just tick to yes or no, meaning you can also change it. And if you are importing and do data migration of huge companies, meaning you can import this as well when you import the employees. It works the same way for the substitute required. If you set this to yes, you would gain a second stage, which of course is substitute required. The substitute gets an email, he has to click on it, and then it can be approved. Normal process, as you know. Great. We did additional changes. For example, you might have recognized that the correct leave request from forms opens now on the right security role it's based. We had this in the past that that if you are, and I'm now going back as an HR manager, try to enter the self-service file. I'm just trying to enter the self-service file. It is preventing me as a manager to enter it if it's not my own record. Yeah, it's moving me back to the supervisor file. And we had cases, and you all know this, where someone entered a leave request himself, but he's also a supervisor, a team lead, or a manager, and now he gets a request. And when he gets a leave request, and he should approve it, because the last form he had open was an employee form, and he's on the leave request employee form. Let's go back here. You see there is not an approve button. So you don't have the approve button, and then supervisors got confused. Hey, I should approve this leave request, but it's not there. We now added this functionality to the leave request itself, meaning we make sure that if it's your own employee, you will always be on the employee form, because you shouldn't approve your leave request on your own if it's not set to self-approve. So you will be always landing on the supervisor form of a leave request. If it's your own employee and you open a record for your own employee, you will not go to the supervisor form. You will go directly to the employee form. Therefore, we avoid confusion, and therefore we always show the right form which we needed. It is a small change, but I think it will have a big effect, because I think we all knew this, that being on the wrong form and looking for a field to approve or not approve it, and you can't find it because you just forgot for a second that you have to change the form to the right one to see this field, is no longer required, as we are now doing that automatically. Employee can cancel now their leave request. Yes, that's also new. In the past, only HR managers have been able to cancel their leave request or adapt the leave request. What we are now doing is we allow only canceling, but we are allowing them with a certain condition. We are allowing cancellation if the leave request was submitted but not approved, or if the leave request is approved but in the future. Meaning, if I'm having a vacation request for December, I, as an employee, no longer have to write my HR manager or my supervisor to cancel my leave request if I want to work. Or if I can't go on vacation for certain reasons, I'm now able to go to the leave request, open it myself, and I am able, as long as it is not approved or as is approved but in the future, to cancel it myself. It looks pretty similar if I'm going on, let's say, I'm so sorry, let's go here, and I'm opening a leave request. Any leave request for the future. Look for one. I just created one. That would be easy, right? This one. You see, I now have the field in here, modify leave request. And as an employee, I can click it, and then this will be canceled, and my supervisor will be informed. How does it work, and how do you enter it if you already have a customized leave request form for employees? Absolutely possible. Will be something that we'll discuss tomorrow. All right. Okay. And this last part is something which we already discussed, that HR managers are now able to assign a specific substitute process directly within the digital personal file, meaning they can set it to substitute is required. We talk now about the leave request and how they get approved and can be cancelled. And we will move on to the second part, which is that the carried forward of leave entitlement, we now added a relationship. In the past, and let's remember, we had a leave entitlement and you maybe not fully used it. So at the end of the year, you have been able, if the settings was right and to carry it forward, to move it to the next year so that you can take your remaining days also in the next year, and they will be calculated against leave requests for the next year. This is an automatic process. We started 2 years back where we had to process once, and then it was fixed, meaning I had 2 days remaining, 2 days have been carried forward, and this was fixed. Now there was a problem that if I'm in January and I cancel a leave request for December, the remaining days of the previous year have been changed. So it's now 4 days instead of 2, but the carried forward wasn't done again. We introduced during the last rollup that now we have an automatic carried forward if something was carried forward initially. Meaning if it is changed, 2 days have been carried forward, the remaining days have been changed in the previous period to 4. We are now re-carry forwarding the 4 days. So we change also the 2 to the 4 days. We made that transparent in the last rollup by adding a couple of new fields to the leave summary. And I will open a leave summary here. And I will open this one. So in the last, let's go one back. Let's use that one. Yep, use that one. So this is a leave summary for last year for an employee. He didn't take any of his 30 man-days vacation. The field which we introduced last time, or was rollup 34, was this one. Consider for transfer 30 man-days, which is a sum of all remaining days which we have in the individual leave entitlements, which are set to be carried forward. And you could see that the carried forward was processed, yes. So what's new? New is something, if you want to analyze it, how the carry forward happened one-to-one, meaning the offset calculation hit, and let's think about an overtime calculation where we have up to 365 records in the leave entitlement, and we want to link the leave entitlement which has a remaining in this year to the one in the next period. That's why I'm going to keep in mind this is 30, why I will enter now next year's vacation. So I'm now in 2021, and you will see, okay, there is a carried forward from last year. So you see some changes here in the view. You're now seeing the absence type, which is fine. And you now see where the origin comes from, the origin of the leave entitlement. If it comes from the employment term, if it was added manually, or if it was carried forward from last year. I'm opening this up, and you will see that over here there is an original leave entitlement, and there is a directly connection, so a lookup field, to the leave entitlement which was carried forward. So if you want to run analysis, if you want to check, if you want to bug check if the carried forward was done correctly, you can do it now by just exporting this vacation entitlement and have the entitlement here and the remaining from the lookup shown from last year, and you can just compare it. It's 30 and 30. It is fine. The Rollup worked perfectly, as it should. But you now have the possibility to make this transparent, especially for overtime, etc., where we really have a lot of individual entitlements in there. Further improvements, and this is the key for Vera.
That's right. Thank you very much. Taking my time sharing my screen. Is it shared? Yeah, it was. Okay, looks fine now, right? Awesome. All right, let's look into further improvements. So Holger showed the leave and absence improvements. Now let's kick off with the applicant management improvements, licensing, and further UI improvements that we did in the system with Rollup 35. Applicant management. I think that all recruiters will understand and appreciate this change because when you have too many applications for one position, it makes it so difficult to find the perfect candidate. Therefore, we improved the applicant management module, and now we make it easier to find the perfect fit for the company. So we enabled the applicant rating on the view so that you can sort and filter by best and worst applications. Let's take a look. On the applications table, now we have a new column called applicant rating or applicant rank. And you get this rating right away as you look in the active applications, and you can sort it by highest and lowest, 5 being good, 1 being bad. Not like a couple of roll-ups ago where the German definition was set in there, 1 being good, 5 being bad. That's not the case. Here, 5 means the 5 stars that you enter in the application. And it's easy to just sort by from smaller to larger, larger to smaller. And thanks to the filters in the views, you can also define for a specific vacancy just by filtering by the vacancy. Pick, for example, content creator. We have the rating as selected by the recruiter on the application. So that is one thing. And we have another view as an improvement also to make it easier to locate high potential applications right away. We have a view called exactly like that, high potential applications. When you click on it, all of the applications that have applicant rating 5 or 4 and where the aptitude is a good match, those applications are going to show on the view based on those filters. So here we go. This is where the numbers for the rating are coming from. This one has 5. The aptitude is good match. And now on the application form, on the evaluation section, we have some other improvements that you will probably notice. One of them is here on the right side on the chart. Now we have description to each one of the bars on this chart, the required grading, verified grading, and self-rating based on what the applicant entered, the verified grading by the recruiter or HR manager, and what is the required grading for that skill, as you all know. So this makes the view much neater, the form much neater, and we can see right away what each bar means. Also, we fixed a bug here for the recalculation of the applicant score. Before, the recalculation took some time. In some instances, maybe it wouldn't recalculate at all, but now thanks to a new workflow in the system, the calculation runs more smoothly for the applicant score, and you can see that same score on the general with the respective bar filling. So in this case, 83. This is the calculation based on the maximum score related to the applicant score, so 5 out of 6, in this case, 83. So that got improved as well. Also, you maybe remember that before the name was not verified grading, it was actually actual grade. So now verified grading, we wanted to make it clearer and emphasize a bit more that this is the rating as analyzed or evaluated by the recruiter. So makes it more clearer, that meaning. Next improvement, we have it on the license assignments. When the user is deactivated, automatically the license assignment of the user is removed, which is great, saves time. Yeah, it's great. Also, the deactivation of license assignments is not possible anymore. Now we have a new error message, which makes it clearer, more user-friendly to the user, that they need to actually delete the license assignment and not just deactivate it. As you know, if the license is deactivated, that license assignment is still counting towards the license count and available licenses, because there is still a connection between the user and the license is still there. So to avoid that situation, now we have a new error message that hints to the user that the license must be deleted, not deactivated. Also, another message is shown. I believe before there was a message shown later in time when the user, for example, if they had 2 available HR manager licenses and they wanted to assign a third one to a user, the system would trigger an error only later in time, and the error message was not very clear. But now there is a new error message. If the user tries to assign more licenses than what's available, the error message just is clear and the user understands right away where the problem is. So let's take a look. I am using the same system as Holga was. And when we go to the available licenses, we see that there is 1 app admin license. I'm going to try and assign a second one and see what the system will tell me. So there's already 1 to the admin. Let's assign to a different user the same license type. So you see, because we are exceeding the allowed maximum number of available licenses, we see this error message. The maximum number of available licenses of type HR app administrator is already assigned. No further license assignments are possible. Please contact your representative or sales@hubdrive.com. So yeah, that's the error message. Same thing like we saw for the deactivation of the license. So if I go in here and I try to deactivate the HR management manager license, or let's go with supervisor, deactivate the supervisor license. Let's suppose maybe the user is not active anymore and I want to remove it from the eyes of the user. I always think, okay, I need to deactivate it, but that's not the case. You actually need to delete the license assignment so that there's no issues down the road because of the license count. And this is the error message that I see. You are not allowed to deactivate the license assignment. Instead of deactivating, please delete the license assignment instead. So much clearer, better user experience. It will save time, save communication between the client and us and you. So I really like this improvement. Then on the dashboards for the license overview, we also did a few changes. So now on this side, I know they are really tiny and maybe the colors are not visible so much, but trust me, this is blue and red. The blue ones are the total licenses that we have in the system. The red ones, the ones that are assigned. And so it kind of reflects what you have here in the middle. The total one is in blue, and the red one, maybe it has a bit of a negative connotation, but it's just a user assigned with a license right now. And I think it makes it much more understandable to the user when they compare both dashboards, these both boxes. Also, we now have new license types showing, not in this specific system, but if you had, for example, a license type recruiter or license type employee time and attendance, as long as you have those license types available in the system, they are also going to show here on the dashboard. So those names will appear in there. Right, then some more improvements on the user interface. As usual, with each new release, we make improvements in the area of user interface and user experience. And for Rollup 35, we renamed some absence views, and now more leave requests are shown in the grid of the digital personnel file. You will also notice that we changed a few names there on the digital personnel file. Let's take a deeper look of these UI improvements. Going to pick Paul Morrison. Why not? He's now a friend of ours. And you see that before we had sections called, for example, leave and absence or time and attendance. We now rename that to leave management, time management, perhaps to make the title a bit smaller. Before we had, some based on the zoom of the platform, the title would not show completely, but now I think it makes more sense, and even from the English language perspective, it makes more sense to have leave management and time management. Then on the leave request side, so now more records are showing there, and also you will notice that we have some more views than before on the leave requests. We have now a view called open leave requests and finished leave requests based on the status of the process of those leave requests. If they are still in draft, they are open. If they are finished, then this means they were already approved or rejected, which makes sense. Then some other improvements, for example, when the leave request with substitute process is active, when the substitute is selected, all the date fields are locked. This way we prevent that those dates are changed in the process and makes it much more secure in the system. And also on the employment terms template, we had already on the employment terms the weekly working hours locked so that there's no misconfiguration in the system. And now we did the same thing in the employment term template. What does this mean? If it's not clear enough, let me create a new employment term template. So let's just call it 40 hours, beginning of the year, 1st of January. And what this improvement means is in the working hours, when you enter the amount of hours per day that the employee must work based on this contract template, you see right away it locks as soon as I enter a number, because this is a calculated field and we don't want anyone to go in there and change the number where the calculation wouldn't make sense. And then we save it, and then when you apply this template to the employment terms, everything runs smoothly. There is no changes in the weekly working hours for some reason. And then some more improvements and fixes that we implemented. For example, the system user supervisor now gets updated in the digital personnel file of the employee when the system user is assigned to the supervisor. This saves time because you don't have to go in there and do that change manually. This is now automated. The system user will be assigned right away. I mentioned before the applicant score is now recalculated smoothly. It's now fixed and improved. Then the employment terms with a start date in the future is only set to active when that date is reached, which doesn't mean that if you enter a date in the future, you can still set the contract to valid before that date. So no panic. This is just automated way when that day is reached that the employment term is set to active, because it happens that HR managers forget to do that, and then they have a draft contract sitting in there. We don't want that anymore. So now this is now automatic. And finally, this one is, I think, a huge improvement for those that use time and attendance. The daily summary is recalculated when the attendance detail is deleted. So with the deletion of the attendance detail and creation of a new one, it saves time for the recalculation. You don't need to change anything manually. Let's take a look, shall we?
Before you do so, there was a hand risen. I think Marco. Marco, please.
Hi.
You have a question.
Yeah, quick question about the previous point. Employment terms with start date in the future is only set to active when the date is reached. Is it only for draft or also in what's the English word? Like in
Negotiation.
In negotiation, yeah. On both? Or only a draft? Because other way around, what would be the way to not automatically set it to active if you want to leave it not inactive because you're not done with negotiation? Or would you just change the start date?
It is in both ways.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Sorry, Vera, for the interruption.
No, thank you for that.
fault.
I had no idea what the answer was, but good that you're here. Okay, what was I going to show? The daily summary. So the daily summary is recalculated. So I'm going to pick Paul Morrison, and I already had some attendance details there for the 2nd of November. So you see that right now he's got 8 hours allocated. He attended 8.5 hours based on the attendance details, and the overtime is half an hour. Makes sense, but what if this changed? What if this is wrong? Maybe he worked a bit more, maybe half an hour more. And you will see that this will change on the daily summaries, this calculation based on the deletion of the attendance details. So let's go into the attendances for this day. And then we delete this attendance. So bear in mind, right now is set to 8.5 hours in total, and I want to add half an hour more. So instead of ending at 5:30 p.m., let's say that the employee ended at 6 p.m. There we go, and you see that now it's 9 hours of work, not 8.5. Important is to delete the attendance detail, not deactivate and activate like we would usually do with sometimes with corrections of data in the system. Any questions so far? I hear silence, which means Holga, the best part of the...
Yeah, the best part, definitely the best part.
My favorite.
I love it. Mine as well. So we're coming to the part that you know this with every roll-up. We try to improve our solution, not by only importing or increasing the number of features and improving our solution that way, but yeah, we did maybe some mistakes, some hiccups in the past, which ended in customer tickets or bugs, and we solved them with every roll-up. And now we are going over the tickets which are in here. 2 pages, this Rollup, so quite a few. And we did some good bug fixes in there, and which definitely helps you and your customers to go on. That also means with the introduction of Rollup 35, there is only Rollup 35 and Rollup 34 will be supported as part of the maintenance contract. Keep that in mind, that end of November, Rollup 33 is no longer supported by us as a maintenance contract. So please check Rollup 35 and think about if you're going up. If you or your customers are on Rollup 33, you should definitely do this as soon as possible. Yep. All right, we had problems at the absence calendar loaded because we sent too many requests to when the absence calendar was loading, especially for many employees, and that not only slowed down the system, but it didn't really load. It really created a problem inside the system. Due was that the Microsoft changed the number of requests allowed on the platform, and we are now added the absence calendar. So if you have huge or if you have bigger departments and the absence calendar is loading, with Rollup 35 should no longer have a problem there. We had multiple tickets. All of them were concerned that we have a misalignment of the rows inside the absence calendar, mean there was a little gap in there. And if you have, again, big departments, or you went on the company absence calendar, you ended up, if you're scrolling down, that sometimes a line wasn't set to the name on the left-hand side. So you actually saw the wrong line. This is no longer the case, which is good. We removed the configurations from the settings in the sitemap. We had configuration tab in the settings, shouldn't be in there, so we moved it there. We added the German translation to the new HR self-service app. There was some translations missing in the German HR self-service app. Keep in mind, the HR self-service app is not the employee app, not the employee self-service. It is our team member app, meaning if your customers or you are using our solution in self-service with a team member, you're using that one. If you using it with other license types or higher Microsoft licenses, or if you're using it with Power Apps licenses, then you don't need this, not your app. But if you or your customers use the Microsoft Team Member app, this is the app you should do. And we missed some translation and added them now. So when you update, you should no longer have missing translation, something written in English. We had fields on the HR request which have been locked at the wrong point in time, meaning we locked them already when you created the HR request, but before actually submitting the HR request, so there are no changes possible. This is now changed, especially for the choosing of the subject. On change of the employee's manager, their access to employment terms does not get updated accordingly. Yes, we had cases where the access of the employment terms, where the old employment, so the old manager was still able to see it, and the new one haven't been able to see it because this is a sharing process. We now introduced something in the background which allows us and will definitely hold up the bargain that we are now have the right manager assigned. On the Bfa integration, we had some changes from the Bfa side, and it did not work with the new API from the Bfa. It does now work if you are updating to Rollup 35. For those who don't know what the Bfa is, it's the Bundesagentur für Arbeit. It's a German workforce agencies, the state-owned workforce agencies in there. Supervisor recruiting only, and HR recruiter cannot access any apps. Yes, in Rollup 33, it was, I believe, in Rollup 34 as well, that we didn't add apps to those new specific roles. So if you only were, or if you only had the supervisor recruiting only or the HR recruiter security role, you couldn't add any apps. If you had already an employee security role with it, you have always been able to access all the apps. But if you only have one of those two security roles assigned to your user, you haven't been able, now you are. Carried forward leave entitlements automatically created by the system writes in the description. Yep, when we had a carried forward leave entitlement, we filled inside the description if it was carried forward, and we wrote in carried forward from last period 5 days. Those description was only filled once. So staying with the example, which I did earlier, this 2 to 4 days, if a change happens in the past, the description wasn't changed or the description wasn't set correctly. What we are now did is we removed the description, as I showed you earlier, because it's no longer necessary. You see the entitlement directly. You see that it was carried forward and from where it was carried forward. So no need of the description any longer. Carried forward. No, wrong origin of leave entitlement when leave entitlement with absence type sick child is created. Yes, we had a wrong assignment of leave entitlement of the origin. So this is now for this specific absence type, but I think it was also for other ad hoc absence types a problem. It's now fixed. So if you know the number behind it because you or your customers entered these tickets, you got them back. This is now fixed. Please update. The admin is able to approve vacation leave requests. Yes, we had cases where an admin was not able or was able to approve it, leave request, which is now solved as well. Let's go to the second page. Unnecessary leave entitlements remain in the system due to the error in the workflow. Delete empty leave entitlements, HR management, XRM1. Correct. In the past, we had cases where a leave entitlement was updated to 0, meaning, let's think about an overtime leave entitlement, which was created automatically, and it was created maybe by -8 because someone didn't track time for that very day. And then they enter attendances after that, meaning I'm entering my attendance details for the previous day, so the leave entitlement now gets updated to 0. Now I have a leave entitlement of 0 hours, 0 remaining, 0 taken. Doesn't make sense. And this is why, and this is just one case where things like that can happen. We introduced a workflow which is deleting those empty entitlements on a regular basis. Now there was an issue which we ended up with a couple of leave entitlements with 0, 0, 0. Didn't make sense. Didn't cause problems, but confusion. That's gone. Automatic correction of transferred leave entitlements to new year not working. Well, I said it earlier, it is working now. So please, if winter is coming, means also the transfer to the new year is coming. So please update to Rollup 35. We can recommend it as early as doing it in the beginning of December to get your customers ready. Field considered for transfer only recognize leave entitlements which were not set processed instead of the leave entitlements. Yes, those new fields did only recognize fields which haven't been processed. Now it does recognize all of them, so you can easily compare what should be processed from that leave summary to the next leave summary, and you can go ahead and do that. Workflow update, name data change, HR manager ran into an error due to maximum length of the name field being too short. it's basically explained that we extended this name field. Leave entitlement could not be added with the dialog button. In all honesty, I don't know the exact error there, but it's fixed there. We had problems with exporting to Excel on some forms of leave summary, I believe. And this is fixed as well. Microsoft Core HR employee creation from applicant does not work. So for those of you who use the talent integration, the Dynamics 365 HR integration, the Core HR integration, and we all know it is the same product from Microsoft. We had trouble on the integration where we created an employee, or we wanted to create an employee from an applicant, and it didn't work. The source was that the employee contract. So if you have an applicant and you create a contract for him, and hire that very applicant, in our solution, the employee gets created and the contract gets reassigned from the applicant to the employee. Yeah. But the trigger of creating an employee worker on the Dynamics 365 HR side was the creation of an employee with a work contract. Therefore, we had an asynchronous process because the contract of that new employee was already created when he was still an applicant. So the trigger didn't run. This is now fixed. Attendance detail is created with flag correction required when no shift is specified. This is now fixed. Even though there is no shift, there is no need of a correction required there. And then we had table permissions missing in the recruiting portal. That we had some changes on our recruiting portal that had to do with the integration to the outside world, as well as that the HR app admin didn't have all privileges on the permission sides, and he's usually the owner of the records of the recruiting portal. On the vacancies, when choosing validate for Bfa, the field marked as mandatory are not completed. Well, so here again, the validation for the Bundesagentur für Arbeit did show some mandatory fields, and they haven't been completed there. So when you choose validate for Arbeit, the fields marked as mandatory are not complete, meaning there have been some missing. Now they are full. It also had to do with the changes from Bfa side on the integration. Was a lot of fixes, but good to have them. Love it. We ask you to help us improve our product. At this very stage, Rollup 35 is in release candidate status, meaning that there are still changes to be made. If you download inside the portal the newest version of the Rollup 35 and import it and test it in your or your customer test system and find things which we should improve, as always, but especially if you want to have those changes directly in Rollup 35 before we are publishing it end of the month, please send us the Rollup or what you find to rolluptickets@hubdrive.com, and it goes directly to the product management. If you don't find a bug or something you like to improve while you're testing or in general, but you have a brilliant product idea, or you think that something should be part of our product and you want to help us improve it, that is not a ticket or nothing which we can do for Rollup 35, but we like to have your ideas. For this, please use productideas@hubdrive.com. Before we go to the question part, now some of them are here. I'd like to special thank everyone who worked on this rollup in the R&D or P&D, our product department and our development department, to make that rollup as it has, again, huge and great features which we like to have, which we ourselves I want to bring a lot of that to our customer because it is creating value for them, and we know this. Also, it is creating less problems for them if I'm thinking, for example, on the license assignment part. So thank you to the R&D department, and thank you for everyone who participated in this meeting. And I'd like to give a special thanks for Vera, because this is the last time Vera and I are doing that together. Next time I'm probably alone. And thank you, Vera, for being here with me and doing this roll-up presentations. Really liked it and enjoy it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me too.
Yeah. But now, please feel free to ask questions. All right, no question coming in. Give it some time. All right. Glad you can also gather the question tomorrow, level 200. I'm looking forward to it to show you the new business process flow for the leave requests. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.